The Curse of Teke Teke. In the bustling town of Sapporo, nestled in the northern island of Hokkaido, crisp autumn air heralded the end of summer. Among the town's residents was Hiroshi Nakamura, a high school student with a fascination for the supernatural. His days were filled with the mundane routine of school. His nights were consumed by his passion for urban legends and ghost stories. One Friday evening, Hiroshi and his friends, Ayumi, Kenji, and Yuki, gathered around a flickering bonfire in the secluded forest near their town. The shadows danced on their faces as Hiroshi began to tell a story that sent shivers down their spines. "You ever heard of Teke Teke?" Hiroshi's voice was a whisper, yet it carried an air of menace. Kenji, ever the skeptic, rolled his eyes. "Come on, Hiroshi, not another ghost story. This one is different," Hiroshi insisted. "They say she's the spirit of a young woman who was cut in half by a train. Her torso, severed from her legs, drags itself along with her elbows, making a teke teke sound." Yuki shuddered. "What happens if you hear the sound?" Hiroshi leaned closer, his voice dropping to a dramatic whisper. "If you hear the teke teke sound, it means she's coming for you. And if she catches you, she'll cut you in half just like her." The night grew colder, and an eerie silence enveloped the... Suddenly, a sharp, dragging noise echoed through the forest, freezing them in their tracks. Ayumi clutched Hiroshi's arm. "Is this a joke?" Hiroshi shook his head, face pale. "I didn't plan this." The sound grew louder, closer. Panic surged through the group, and they bolted towards the safety of their homes. As Hiroshi ran, he couldn't shake the feeling that they had awakened something ancient and malevolent. Following day at school, the atmosphere was tense. Hiroshi and his friends gathered in a secluded corner of the cafeteria, their faces etched with fear. "Did anyone else hear that last night?" Ayumi asked, voice barely above a whisper. Kenji nodded, his usual bravado replaced with unease. "It was real. I heard it too." Hiroshi's mind raced. He had always been drawn to the supernatural, but he never truly believed in it. Now, confronted with the possibility that the legend of Teke Teke was real, he felt a chill run down his spine. That evening, as Hiroshi walked home, the street seemed unusually quiet. The wind rustled the leaves, and shadows lengthened ominously. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. As he reached his house, he heard it again, the unmistakable teke teke sound. His heart pounded in his chest as he turned to see a shadowy figure emerging from the darkness. Panic surged through him, and he ran inside, slamming the door shut. Breathless and terrified, Hiroshi knew that he couldn't face this alone. The next day, he gathered his friends and told them about the encounter. Together, they decided to seek help from an old temple known for its protective charms. The old temple stood on the outskirts of Sapporo, place of serenity and mystery. Group approached the temple with trepidation, their steps echoing on the worn stone path. Inside, they were greeted by an elderly priest with a kind yet solemn expression. "We need your help," Hiroshi began, explaining their encounters with Teke. The priest listened intently, his face growing graver with each word. "Teke Teke is an ancient curse," he finally said. "Once you encounter her, she will not stop until she has claimed her victim." He handed them protective charms, intricately woven with symbols of protection. Keep these with you at all times. They will offer some protection, but you must also seek to understand and appease her spirit. Despite the priest's assurances, the group left the temple feeling a lingering sense of dread. That night, Hiroshi kept the charm close as he lay in bed, his mind racing with thoughts of the cursed spirit. Days passed, and the group tried to return to their normal lives, but the shadow of Teke Teke loomed over them. One evening, Ayumi failed to show up for their usual study session. Worried, Hiroshi and the others went to her house, only to find her mother in tears. Ayumi didn't come home last night, she sobbed. She's missing. Fear gripped the group as they realized the gravity of the situation. Teke Teke was real, and she was coming for them. One by one. Desperate, they returned to the temple. The priest greeted them with a solemn nod. The spirit is restless, said. You must find a way to lay her to rest. Only then will the curse be broken. Determined to save their friend and stop the curse, the group delved into the history of Teke Teke. They discovered that the spirit was once a young woman named Hanako, who had been the victim of a tragic accident. Her death was violent and unjust, and her spirit remained bound to the earthly realm by her unresolved pain and anger. They visited the site of the accident, a desolate stretch of train tracks on the outskirts of town. As they stood there, a sense of sorrow and unease washed over them. Hiroshi knelt by the tracks, placing a bouquet of white lilies on the ground. We're sorry for what happened to you, Hanako whispered. We want to help you find peace. That night, Hiroshi had a dream. He saw Hanako, her face twisted in pain and rage. She reached out to him, her eyes filled with a desperate plea for help. Hiroshi woke with a start, his heart pounding. He knew what he had to do. Gathering his friends, they returned to the train track. They lit candles and offered prayers, hoping to appease Hanako's restless spirit. As the night deepened, air grew colder, and the Teke Teke sound echoed through the darkness. Hanako's spirit appeared, her form flickering like a shadow in the wind. Hiroshi stepped forward, holding out the protective charm. We're here to help you, he said, his voice steady. We want to end your suffering. For a moment, Hanako's spirit wavered, as if torn between rage and sorrow. Then, with a final mournful Teke Teke, she vanished into the night, leaving only silence in her wake. Curse was lifted. Ayumi was found, disoriented but unharmed, near the train track. The group returned to their lives, ever changed by their encounter with the supernatural. They had faced their fears and survived, bound together by a shared experience that would stay with them forever. Hiroshi continued to explore the world of urban legends, but with a newfound respect for the spirits that lingered in the shadows. He knew that some stories were more than just tales. They were echoes of real suffering and pain, and they deserved to be heard and understood. And so the legend of Teke Teke lived on, chilling reminder of the thin line between the living and the dead, and the power of understanding and compassion heal even the most tormented souls.